Hello and welcome back to PSN News. I'm Danielle Dempsey. With me tonight is Tusha Pham, a senior film student who traveled with Penn State's College of Communications to Israel this past week for an embedded international documentary course. Tusha, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to kind of give you a rundown of my whole entire time in Israel.
Yeah, and welcome back.
Thanks.
Back to the States. So your trip with Israel was part of an embedded course with COM 437A.
Yeah.
Could you explain what an embedded course is?
Yeah, of course. So basically an embedded course is an undergraduate or graduate program that kind of has an international travel component to it. So that travel component usually takes place whether it's in winter break, spring break, and also it could also be like a Maymester or anything like that. So as long as that that course has kind of that travel component, it's basically considered like an embedded program.
Okay, cool. And your embedded program was to Israel, and
Yes.
what was Israel like?
Oh my gosh, Israel was so much fun. It was actually my first time going to Israel. I feel like if it weren't for this program, I probably wouldn't have chosen to go to Israel anyway. But no, Israel was so much so great. Just the culture, the food there was awesome. Falafel, hummus, all the Mediterranean foods. And also just I'm a big fan of architecture too. So seeing just the old architecture mixed with the new architecture was really, really fun for me. So it was a blast.
Absolutely, lots of history in Israel. So what was the goal of your class's study abroad to Israel?
Yeah, so basically, COM 437A is advanced documentary. So basically, goal was to make a documentary that we were kind of, we were doing all the things that we need to do to plan for it, whether it was logistics, figuring out travel, things like that, before actually going to Israel. So we spent 10 days there, and the first leg of just being there was more so sightseeing, things like that. And then, towards the middle of it, a big chunk of it was all for production. And then towards the end was more sightseeing stuff. But yeah, basically the goal was to make a documentary film. I think we had a total of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 films.
Wow.
Yeah, and we kind of paired up with each other. We were kind of bouncing around on sets that we kind of planned for. And yeah, basically to make a nice short student film.
Okay, cool. And so what was your group's documentary about?
Yeah, so I love talking about this just because it kind of reflects a lot on my cultural identity and things like that. So my documentary was primarily based on the owner of a Vietnamese Chinese fusion restaurant, and it's all about a Vietnamese refugee's journey coming from Vietnam to Israel. Just because prior to even doing any research or anything like that, I spoke with my professor Pearl Gluck. And we were kind of researching just the communities within Israel, and I told her about where I come from and my parents' background and things like that, and we were kind of looking up the Vietnamese community, and I had no idea there was a Vietnamese community in Israel. So that was pretty awesome. So it was good to kind of dig deep into my culture and things like that, and just figure base it off of the restaurant and foods. And it's always nice to hear someone else's story, especially when it kind of relates to yours in a way. So yeah, basically just the restaurant, the owner, and kind of her journey acclimating to a totally new environment when she came to Israel.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And it was cool that you were able to do something that was personal to you and you could connect with on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And so what did a typical day look like trying to put together this documentary on such a short time?
Yeah. So aside from the sightseeing and the already pre-planned things that we had, Israel-wise. So a regular day with production, and honestly very much varied, just because I feel with documentary, there's so many unplanned things and things that come up that you don't really know about, and those were some of the challenges that I also had to face as well. But I would say that so some of the so some of the things that that for production wise, I would say so we would have to kind of figure out transportation the beginning part of the day with going on a train and things like that, because we were kind of hopping from city to city. My crew was basically in Haifa for a lot of the time, but yeah, and then we would go to the restaurant, spend a few hours there, and then sometimes we might have to hop to another set and then go back to the restaurant. But there was a good chunk of hours spent at the restaurant just talking to subjects, customers, kind of figuring out like where we're filming and like just all the pre-planning stuff and like just, you know, conducting the interviews and things like that. And then towards the end of it was just figuring out travel back and just like logistics of the entire day being there, obviously like accounting for meals, travel time back to where we were, you know, like staying like at the hostel. So lots of planning and stuff, but a lot of fun.
Wow, that sounds incredible and very busy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you had to choose a favorite memory from your time in Israel, what would that be?
Oh, there's so many memories to choose from. I was talking to my friends like earlier about like which memory like we, you know, like was like the most fun to talk about. But I would honestly say working with the Bezalel Academy of Arts and Design, like the students there, the animators, that was definitely one of like, you know, like one of the biggest highlights for me, just because I've never really worked in like animation or anything like that. So just working with the animators and like kind of seeing their process and the research that goes into their work was really cool. And also like don't really know what we would have done without them on set, just because like I don't speak Hebrew and none of like my castmates spoke or crewmates spoke Hebrew like either. So it was nice having them there as like extra support and like helping us figure out like how to get to and from Haifa, and also like talking to you know, like C was the restaurant owner, so, and she was more comfortable speaking in Hebrew. So I don't know what I would have done without them, but I would definitely say working with the animators, it was an amazing experience.
Wow, and that's something you don't think about, the language barrier. Like that's a huge barrier to, you know, tackle when you're there. So that's incredible that you were able to find those people who could help you guys so much.
Totally.
And that overall sounded like an incredible opportunity. So I was wondering, would you recommend embedded classes to other students at Penn State?
Absolutely, like 110%. Like I always tell, you know, like my friends and peers, take like chances of the opportunities that come to you, take advantage of them. Like I said before, like I would have never like, you know, like chosen Israel to like go to as just like, you know, like to just like stay there and like have fun. But I'm really glad that, you know, like this embedded course kind of gave me that opportunity even to like make a short doc there. Like I feel like I wouldn't have ever had that opportunity if it wasn't for it. So definitely 100%, like 110% recommend it. And like, you know, like it comes with so many experiences that like you probably would have never dreamed of, and it's definitely a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today and talking about your trip. I loved hearing about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Up next, Morgan and Carlos will bring you the latest news from across the nation. Stay tuned.